I'm your host, Jessica Vernan. I'm an author, creative consultant, and a horticultural therapy practitioner with my company, Basker, where I help people and businesses use nature and gardening for mental and social well-being. I am so excited about this episode. I'm talking to Amelia Hruby. She's a feminist writer, podcaster, producer. She is the founder of Softer Sounds podcast studio and the host of the Off the Grid podcast, which is all about leaving social media. She has a whole podcast about leaving social media, which is so cool. And she has a new book called Your Attention is Sacred Except on Social Media. I already said it. I love this episode. We talk all about attention, algorithms, how it's not your fault if you have a hard time putting your phone down, and the role that social media has played into that. And, this is a huge reason why I wanted to become a horticultural therapist, not only to help people find ways to disconnect, but with that, connect back to themselves and others. And I needed help with this too. So I'm helping others, helping myself. It's truly rewiring your brain back and putting your attention back into yourself and things that maybe have a better return on investment for you. I could talk about this all day. And we do. We talk about this for over an hour. If this is something that you want to explore, you can email me about ways we can work together. And that's at hellobaskergardens.com. It'll be in the show notes too. I just really want to help people feel more connected to themselves again. All right, let's talk to Amelia. I cannot think of a better guide to talk to us about leaving social media or maybe just having a new relationship with it. But first, a word from this week's sponsor, Week of the Website. They're back for a second season. I love them so much. Talk to you on the other side. This episode is sponsored by Week of the Website, a website and a week. A beautifully designed website in a week. Yes, it's possible with Week of the Website. They've been doing this for over a decade. Their team is dedicated to building amazing websites in just 1 week. And while they're pretty big time, you're going to feel like their only client. They really have a compassionate, hands-on approach. Week of the Website was a sponsor last season, and I've already heard from a listener they had a great experience using them. Architect Miles Trudell and his partner used Week of the Website to update, modernize, and add a little polish to his site, and it looks so good. That's what I love about Week of the Website. Their services aren't just for brand new websites. They can help you give your site a refresh or add newness to what you already have. When you're running a business, sometimes a little update to your website is the last on your to-do list, but Week of the Website can help. Their past clients have included coaches, floral studios, restaurants, entrepreneurs, nonprofits, and even a beekeeper. Their Week of the Website launch is a great place to start. A custom Squarespace website built in 1 week that includes a dedicated product manager, a designer, 3 design review calls, SEO and mobile optimization, and a lifetime trading portal access and more. Head to weekofthewebsite.com/insideoutside to book a time and learn more. And for Inside Outside listeners, get 1 free month of their concierge support and hosting when you book a project with them. That's weekofthewebsite.com/insideoutside, and I'll include a link to this in the show notes and a link to Miles' site too. Amelia, I just want to tell you that as I was plugging in all of my recording equipment, which is literally just a wall outlet, I got a little emo grateful and just thinking about how I really feel like doing a podcast is just one of the greatest gifts of my life. To be able to just reach out to someone and that I think is cool or I admire the work they're doing and be like, hey, can we talk? Do you feel like that way with your podcast?
Oh, 100%. Podcasting has also been one of the greatest gifts of my creative career. And it has built some of my favorite relationships. Some of my closest friends now are people I met because they came on my podcast.
Yes. It's just, I don't know. I think when we both started podcasting, it was a very different landscape, and it feels like quite literally everyone has a podcast now. So when you say you have a podcast, it's like saying you had a blog in like 2012 or something. But I still will forever do this, I think, because it just feels like a gift. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I have listened to various shows of yours for many, many moons now. So, like, especially, I still
What?
recommend the cookbook podcast to people. So,
Oh, okay. I feel very honored right now. I did not know that. Great. This is our first time ever talking. So, okay. Well, thank you so much. So we kick off every podcast with an outside moment. What is your first nature memory or a time that nature impacted you?
I loved thinking about this question, and I have a kind of idyllic first nature memory, which is I remember I must have been about 4 years old. And I, at that time, was living in Iowa with my parents as a very small child, of course. And I was spending an afternoon with a babysitter, and we were outside, and it started to rain. And it was raining in the backyard, but not in the front yard. And so we went to the front yard where it wasn't raining, and we watched it rain in the backyard. And then a rainbow came out because it was sunny, on half of the street and cloudy on the other. And it was it's the only memory I have from that time in my childhood. Like I did not form a lot of memories when I was 4 or 5, but I remember this so clearly and viscerally. I can still smell that like petrichor scent of rain on asphalt when I think about it. I can see exactly the slope of our driveway that we walked up to go between the front and backyard. I can see that rainbow over the school that was across the street from my house. And it just feels like this really profound moment for me around perspective, that things can be so different. Like you can stand in one place and look at different things and see them totally differently. It can be raining in your backyard and not your front yard. That has become like a really big life lesson for me.
Oh my gosh. I'm just an emotional person today. That made me actually, I'm emotional every day. But that is so beautiful. And I think what's really interesting about that is it happens, right? Still that it rains in one place and not the other. But I think that a lot of times as adults, we don't stop to recognize that or are not in awe of that. And personally, I'm still in awe of that because I'm like, what is happening? How is this even happening? If I'm driving home from a store and my street is super wet, but where I just came from wasn't, I'm just like, this is kind of magical. So I think that's so cool that that's your first memory. And do you feel like you're still taking notice of things like that?
I want to say yes, but I think the reality is more often I'm just like staring at my computer or my phone and working than I am like, being outside mid-afternoon to notice the rainstorm come through. I'm much more likely to like notice it's raining when I look out my window now than I am to be outdoors and feel interrupted by the rain. But it was really lovely to reflect on with this question and just to realize like, that's my first memory of life. I don't have any memories I can think of older than that. So it feels very important.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Maybe a little action item is next time it rains, go outside. Okay. So every podcast episode I'm bringing this to the researcher, philosopher, you. So I'm interested to see if you've heard of him before. Every episode, I bring research or study or a cool article about nature and how it can change us or how it can help us. And I'm bringing one to you from Stephen Kaplan. Are you familiar with him?
I don't think so.
I'm so excited. Okay.
I'm excited too. I love learning new things.
So Stephen Kaplan believes that nature, I'll just do a direct quote from one of his studies, nature allows us to restore cognitively from attention fatigue, which I'm like, how more can this be Amelia than that? And he proposed that there are 4 parts of attention restoration theory, which is being away, fascination, extent, and compatibility. And we don't need to get in deep into all of those because we're going to be talking a lot about attention. But he just theorized that to be able to practice this attention restoration theory, that nature is really this perfect vessel to do that. What do you think about that, Amelia?
It definitely feels true in my body when I hear you say it. I think that so many of us, myself very much included, live in these very industrial rhythms of the workday and high achievement and meritocracy. And I think that nature is an antidote to that because natural rhythms are so different than industrial rhythms. And something I've started saying a lot as I talk about the book is that I think that anytime we're using an economic model for something and it feels bad, if we shift to using an ecological model for it, that's often like exactly the antidote we need. And so that's really what I'm hearing is that when we feel attention fatigue, when we feel distracted or fractured or just not whole, we can turn to nature as one way of seeking healing or of restoring our attention. I don't think nature's the only way, but I think it is one really powerful place or site of healing our attention holistically.
Yes. And I'm excited. I'll include this in the show notes and obviously I'll send it to you, but I like that attention restoration theory, those 4 components, because I think you kind of talk a little bit about those without actually naming those components in your book. And then one last note about this, Stephen Kaplan I've never met Stephen Kaplan, but I'm obsessed with his work. He wrote this in 1995.
Of course. Yeah. I have to say, when I did research on the attention economy, I was shocked to discover that this was not like a 2020 idea. This, like, people have been talking about this for decades.
Yeah. And, and actually we can kind of shift to that. So you have a new book that just came out called Your Attention is Sacred, Except on Social Media. And if anyone's ever listened to this podcast, they know my relationship with social media. It's very love, hate, actually just kind of hate now. Mm-hmm. But, you call this a manifesto, right? Which I kind of love that it doesn't feel like this overwhelming book to read. What inspired you to kind of shift your work from the podcast Off the Grid to writing this manifesto?
Yeah, I think it started because I had this kind of funny experience when I was podcasting. And I'm so curious if you've ever had this experience as a longtime podcaster. But there was a point last year where I started having guests on, like amazing people who I wanted to interview about their ideas and opinions on things. And they would say something, and I would find myself feeling like, wait, I don't think that's right. I think I have a better thought there. I don't think that's how that works. And as an interviewer, that's not a very helpful impulse. Like, I didn't go into these conversations to feel like, combative or corrective with my guests at all. And so I started sort of asking myself, like, what is happening here? Why am I feeling this way? And what I realized is that without naming it, I had internally shifted from being in a space of like asking questions about social media to being in a space of having a pretty clear and articulated point of view on what I thought these apps and algorithms were doing to us. And that was the moment where I was like, oh, I think I have to write a book. And I laughed because I didn't really want to write a book. Like, when I started Off the Grid in my podcast studio, I was like, I'm done writing, only podcasting now. I had written a dissertation. I had self-published and traditionally published an illustrated journal all at the same time. And so I was burnt out on writing. I didn't want to write anymore. And I thought I was just podcasting, but that experience in those interviews showed me that I did have another book in me and that it wanted to come out, and that if I didn't write it down, it was going to show up in these conversations. And that wasn't how I wanted to be in conversation. So I think that, I very much believe that books come from like above and within. So it was very much like my inner voice and a sort of divine download that arrived simultaneously to be like, this is the book and this is the title and it will have 3 chapters. And I called it a manifesto because I really wanted to have a point of view. And, I've read all of the big social media books out there written by journalists and philosophers, and some of them I like more than others, but the ones I like most are the ones that come with like a clear point of view and don't take such a neutral stance on social media. And I didn't want to have a neutral stance here. I wanted to really say something. And I felt like calling it a manifesto freed me up to do that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, okay. I want to dive into that, but I do want to circle back to what you just said. That is so fascinating to me because I think as not just a podcast interview, but any sort of interviewer, you don't want to constantly be challenging your guests. Like, it's good to challenge them a little bit, right? But I could imagine that if every episode you're like, it would start to be kind of not a fun listen. But I think that also probably comes from doing a podcast on more of a singular topic too, right? Because Off the Grid is about getting off social media. And at some point you have, like you said, like your philosophy on it, and it's kind of just what it is at that point.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it's been really interesting to make the show and approach this question of leaving social media from so many angles. I've done well over 100 episodes now, and I can still keep talking about it. And like, I do have some very clear, like, sort of opinions and beliefs now. So it has been interesting to see how it unfolds and shifts over time. And, I myself have been off of social media for 4.5 years now. So also, I'm not talking about this thing I left a few months ago anymore. I'm talking about something that I haven't really experienced in years. And that has really shifted the conversation for me as well.
Wow. Okay. So I want to dive into a couple standout moments in the book for me that just was like, whoa. The whole conversation around algorithms, which you talked in depth about in your book. And the way that I always approached algorithms is kind of how you explained it in your book, how a lot of people talk about them. It's like, oh, the algorithm, it's not showing my post, or the algorithm, I don't even get to see my friend's stuff anymore. But I loved how deep you went into the idea of algorithms and the fact that they were originally to serve a purpose and to help us. And that algorithms aren't just in Instagram and TikTok. It's Spotify. We are being algorithmized. I don't think that's a word. All over the place. So can you share a little bit more about that and maybe your research about that and where you landed with algorithms?
Yeah, gladly. So when I wanted to learn more about algorithms, I read this book from the MIT Essential Knowledge series, and I assumed that MIT had found the expert. And so I read a book called Algorithms by Panos Laridas, I believe. And what I learned is that algorithms are just a way to solve a problem. And they do that through sort of patterning and sequencing data. So algorithms are centuries old. You can hear algorithms in musical rhythms. They exist in all aspects of our lives, or in many aspects of our lives. And the reason that we talk about algorithms much more now is because with the rise of computing and the internet, there's so much more data available. And that means that algorithms can input a lot more of that data. And with computers, they can do it much, much faster. So, a human can actually create an algorithm, implement an algorithm, but it takes us a long time to sort all the data, do the processes, et cetera. A computer can do it very, very fast. So when I learned that about algorithms, I was like, oh, this is so intriguing because I think of an algorithm as something that like was invented by Facebook, but that's not
Hmm.
true. Facebook did not invent algorithms writ large. And anyone listening to this who, is a computer scientist is feeling like a sort of, yeah, Amelia, duh moment. But I am not a computer scientist. So this was a breakthrough for me. And when I started to think of it this way, I realized that we're using algorithms all the time. And the algorithms that feel good to me to use are the ones that actually solve my problems because algorithms are meant to solve a problem. So if you use a map app like Google Maps or Apple Maps or Waze, there is an algorithm in that map that is selecting for you the fastest path from where you are to where you want to go. And when we use an app like that, like we go to the app with a problem, which is how do I get from here to there? And the app solves that problem for us very quickly, faster than we could probably do it ourselves, with more information than we have at hand, right? Because the algorithm's also mapping traffic, it's mapping construction, it's mapping weather. It knows all of that. And I don't necessarily know that offhand. So in the instance of a mapping app, I love an algorithm. It is so effective. If you've ever been caught in traffic and your map has rerouted you around it, you have been grateful for a mapping algorithm. And that is to me in stark contrast to the algorithms on social media. So the ones you're mentioning, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Spotify, these are recommendation-based algorithms whose purpose is to keep you on that app so that that company who owns the app can serve you more ads and make money from your attention on those ads. And so something I talk about in the book is like, these apps didn't start that way. Like when Facebook first started, the algorithm, from my perspective, which of course I can't know because it's proprietary, but it helped us just broaden our social network, right? It recommended people that we might know so we could be friends with them. But now that's not what the Facebook algorithm is doing. It's not solving this problem I sort of had of social networking. Instead, it's solving the problem of how do I make more money for Facebook? And that is what I think has really twisted and contorted our relationship to the internet with its extractive algorithms. It's gone from, I have a problem, here's an algorithm that can solve it, I'm going to use that to get a solution, to, I probably don't even have a problem, I'm just going to open Instagram, and that algorithm's really going to try to keep me there so it makes more money for Meta in the process. Like, algorithms are functioning so differently in those different paradigms. And that helped me see that like algorithms themselves are not the problem. It's these specific kind of extractive social media algorithms that are problematic.
When you said it kind of blew your mind or whatever, I was the same way. I'm like, oh my gosh, because I think we do think of algorithms in just that one way. And you gave another example in the book about Spotify, how someone started listening to the radio because they realized that Spotify is also an algorithm. They're serving you up things that they think you like. And all of a sudden you're living in this tiny music bubble where you're only listening to the same artists over and over again or what they think that you like. And so even though it's supposed to be this land of discovery, you're not really discovering things outside of that algorithm. Whereas the radio, if you pop it on, I mean, depending on what station you're listening to, you might discover something new that might sound completely different than what you think that you're interested in. And I mean, that goes for TikTok and Instagram and all the other things too. But it really made me think twice about, I mean, I'll still use Spotify, but it made me think about it in such a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. That example I pulled from Jenny Odell's book, How to Do Nothing. And it really struck me as a former radio DJ myself, who, like, now that I'm years off air and had just listened to a lot of like Spotify curated playlists over the past few years, I realized that my listening had shifted so much. And I quit using Spotify at the end of last year because I really wanted to shift my relationship to music again. I wanted to discover more music, and I wanted more of my money to go to independent artists than to Spotify itself. So when I did that, what I noticed is that I'm listening to more different kinds of music, and I'm having kind of two disparate experiences. I'm hearing a lot more music I don't really like, because when I go try to look for new stuff, I'm like, I don't like any of this. What is this? But I'm also finding like more sort of like treasured songs or albums that feel different than what I've heard before. And I'm just enjoying that experience so much more. I find much more pleasure and even joy in not liking a song than I did in just like letting Spotify play in the background for hours and not even noticing a single song that played.
So what are you using now if you're not using Spotify?
I'm using Apple Music, and I'm buying a lot of music on Bandcamp.
Bandcamp? I didn't even know that was still around.
Oh yeah, it's around, and it's
amazing,
quite active and popular, especially as more musicians are leaving Spotify.
And so tell me the difference between Apple Music and Spotify to you. It's just serving you up lots more different things.
It's actually paying more money to the artist per stream. So my choice to move from Spotify to Apple was about how much money that the musicians are making when I listen. So I don't remember the numbers quite off the top of my head, but I think that Apple Music and Tidal pay about twice as much maybe as Spotify does per stream. So I wanted to just kind of keep streaming, but support artists more in the process.
Okay, well, I'll be switching to, I didn't realize that. And I also, it's funny that you say that, because just last night I was complaining about the Spotify app for podcasts, because for a while, Apple Podcasts was a little glitchy in the way that if you started playing a podcast that you weren't subscribed to and then you came back, it was just like gone. I'm hoping that they fix that now. But with Spotify podcasts, it's like actually, it's hard to find the things that you're actually subscribed to if there's a new episode, because it's such a small little grouping of them. And so just last night I went back to Apple Podcasts because of that. So I gotta get Apple Music too.
Yeah. I will also shout out Pocket Casts as a great alternative. And I also love Overcast for listening to podcasts. That's like an independent, one creator run podcast listening app. I use Apple Podcasts myself, but those are my two faves for any non-Apple product people out there.
Okay, cool. So another thing I wanted to discuss with you, and this is something that I actually just watched a video about it on YouTube this morning. I watched this, I think her name is Lael. It's I don't watch YouTube videos, but I'm really into this one creator that just talks a lot about social media trends. And I don't know if you do this, but I'm not on social media, but I'm still fascinated and obsessed about the trends. So I subscribe to a lot of newsletters about it and I watch videos about it because I still want to know, but I don't want to be on there. Do you do that?
Not exactly, no. I do follow a lot of social media news because I like to see what the platforms are doing because I feel pretty critical of it, but I don't follow the trends very closely. Okay. I'm often out of the loop on a trend.
Okay. Well, so, and I mean, this is an idea that you talk about in the book, and it might be sort of duh to some people, but just the consumerism of these platforms. This woman was talking about how there's a creator that is on a vacation in a tropical location, has a giant sun hat, trying to sell you this giant sun hat. You buy the giant sun hat for a proposed vacation that you will be taking sometime in your life. And now you've just accumulated all this shit that you're going to maybe use to try to mimic someone else's lifestyle. And when you really look at these apps more and more, and I mean, TikTok Shop, whatever, it's just trying to get you to buy stuff. And I'm curious if someone were to look at their feed, what percentage of things are your friends' kids or the reasons why you say you're on the app versus how much you're being served up things to buy. So can you talk a little bit about that and maybe when that shift happened and why it's so dangerous for our brains?
Yeah. So I think that a real big moment in this shift was when Instagram moved from a chronological feed to an algorithmically based feed. So that's when we really
Mm-hmm.
saw the introduction of the algorithm as we discuss it now, right? So there were algorithms on these platforms before, but the one that we're always lamenting, the algorithm, sort of emerged in that moment where the feed was no longer chronological. And that became a way for Meta to pump more and more ads into our feeds as we scroll. I haven't seen any reporting on a percentage or what the difference is for different people and how many ads you see versus how much content you see from the people you follow versus how much recommended content you see based on your perceived interests or what the, algorithm thinks you're interested in. So I don't know an exact breakdown of that, but what I write about in the book is my own personal experience of looking around my home and through my email receipts that I've saved over the years and looking back at all the stuff that I bought when I was on social media. And there's so much of it. I bought so many candles. I bought so many pairs of leggings. I myself bought a wide brimmed hat for a vacation I never went on.
Oh my gosh, great.
The hat is actually a version of it is something I do wear sometimes, but still, just like so many things. I bought like an ice roller for my face that just lived in my freezer for 2 years, and then I got rid of it. Like I don't think I ever once ice rolled my face. So many things I purchased because I saw them on social media, and they solved this problem that often I had never thought of before I was told it was a problem by social media. And so I really appreciate what Jerome Lanier says in his book, 10 Arguments for Deleting Your Social Media Accounts Right Now, which is also a very direct manifesto. But he used to work at, I believe, Facebook, and he talks about how if you are on social media, if you are an active user, you are consenting to hyper personalized advertising every second that you're scrolling. And so I think that is very much the case. That was my experience on social media. And I think that anyone who just does a casual scroll will see that in their feed, that you are being served products by both influencers and advertisers. And all of them are trying to convince you that you have a problem that I would venture to say most of the time is not a problem you were thinking about when you arrived on the app.
Mm-hmm.
And something else that I was listening to a podcast episode recently and really, really struck me is that I think it was an episode of Search Engine Podcast, and the guest was talking about how TikTok is not competing with Facebook or Instagram. TikTok is competing with Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
TikTok is social shopping, and that is what it wants to be, and that is what it will continue to become. So thinking of it as a social media app is really kind of a misnomer. That's what this person was arguing. And they showed like what it looks like in China is social shopping. It's even more shopping forward. And so I think that's the direction we're going to see it go, is it's going to be about the shopping first, not the cute dances or the funny videos. Like these apps are going to become more and more and more about purchasing because their parent companies need to make more and more and more money based on the like venture capital conditions of their corporations. And so it's a really problematic and harmful cycle that each of us is sort of like experiencing when we just pick up our phone and start scrolling. And I have so much empathy for everyone who's on social media because it's like we're just one person, right? Like, how do you combat this whole engine of personalized advertising and behavioral manipulation? And the only way I figured out how to do it was just to get off the apps. But I
Yeah.
know many people are still active on them, and you're grappling with it all the time.
Yeah, I know. As you're saying that, I was thinking about how physical malls are closing. So now we just have digital ones on social media apps. Basically, it's like you can go from store to store depending on who the influencer is. And I think when you mention that grappling aspect, I think, and I'm sure you hear this all the time because this is a big part of your platform is people say, well, I can't leave because of my business, or I can't leave because I like seeing pictures of my friends' kids, or I use it to do this. But I think that grappling is what is the cost of that? And can we find other ways to find solutions to the things that we think we need it for? Through all of your conversations with people, what do you think sometimes is that tipping point to finally say, like, I'm just going to get off? Like, what do we need sometimes to happen to just push us to do it? I know everybody's reason is different, but I don't know. Like, I think some people just need someone to push them.
Yeah. The two questions that I always work through with people are, how does it feel? And is it working? So for just a casual user of social media, we're probably going to dig into how does it feel first? Like, how do you feel when you're on the app? And I often will invite them to do an intentional scrolling practice. And what that looks like is picking up your phone and having a piece of paper or a journal and a pen nearby, and then setting a timer for 5 minutes and opening your app of choice, whether that's Instagram or TikTok or X or whatever it is, and scrolling for 5 minutes. And as you scroll, every time you pause on something, you write down what you saw and how it made you feel. And if you do that for 5 minutes, you'll have quite a list of all the things you saw and the feelings that they brought up. And through that process, doing that multiple times at different times of day, especially if you're like a late night doom scroller, we got to capture those feelings as well. Once we sort of notice that and paint that picture, we can really get clear on like, how is this app making you feel? And are you willing to feel that way? And I've definitely worked with people where we do that and they realize like they actually feel pretty fine. And for some of them, then they realize they want to make like a different moral or political decision about leaving social media. But more often, when we start to look at the feelings, or when I look at the feelings with clients, it's a pretty abysmal bunch of feeling sorts, right? Like it's like, oh, I feel insufficient, inadequate, unseen, scared, stressed, overwhelmed, fearful. Like those are the words that start to come up. And once you really look at that list of feelings, I find that that can be enough to sort of push people to make different decisions about social media.
Mm-hmm.
With the second question, is it working? That's really the question for all of my business owners and people sharing their creative work on the internet. And that's where we might go into more of the metrics and the marketing side of things, which would be like, how are you using social media? Is it bringing new people to you? Is it nurturing people who you already know? Are people buying your work on social media? And also then, what sales can we attribute to your social media presence? Are there other ways that we could help you meet people or keep you in touch with them? And often I find that people overestimate the role that social media is actually playing in their marketing or their sales. And we can relatively easily find different methods to fulfill whatever social media was doing for them. So those are kind of my two approaches. I think that for some people, social media just starts to feel bad enough that they have to go. I think for other people, they realize it's so like deeply misaligned with their values that helps them get off. And I think for other people, it's very practical. Like, oh, I'm wasting a lot of time here and it's not working the way I want it to. And that's the reason that they leave.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I was already on the outs, but then when I saw Fucky Zucky at the inauguration, I was like, okay. I just feel like every single time I would open the app, he's getting money, and I just don't want to support that. And just whatever, we don't have to get into the policies on this episode. I mean,
that's how I felt about like Jeff Bezos' Venetian wedding. I had already canceled all of my Amazon Prime and everything. But yeah, I mean, I do feel like this year we just see these like grotesque displays of wealth and power. And it's like so visible to us who these social media and tech founders are aligning with. And like when I see it on the TV or in the newspaper or wherever, I'm like, ugh, I cannot align myself with that.
I mean, and I think with Meta specifically, taking away so many guardrails for monitoring and keeping people safe, like that's just another reason to abandon, because they don't give a fuck about you. Like they don't care about your mental health. They don't care about you at all. It's no longer what it was originally created as. And I think when I launched my new company, Basker, I had to make a very conscious decision to be on social or not. And I thought, maybe I could go back. Because I hadn't been on it for a couple years when I was in school. And when I picked up my phone to post that I had launched Basker, it's the thing that you said, how do you feel? I immediately felt ugh. Like I don't even know if it's sad, mad. It just felt like, ugh. And so I knew I couldn't be there. And I'm curious. And I mean, I think that you're the kind of person like whatever works for you, but because Instagram and Google have this relationship now, I put up like just like a 6 grid, because if someone were to Google me, they're pulling from Instagram now. And so I don't ever have to go there anymore, and I don't open it anymore, but I still have a 6 grid presence. But even that, I'm like, should I even do that? It's really hard to know, because in some ways I'm still supporting that, but then I'm also supporting myself by kind of utilizing this gross platform for my own good. I don't know. It's something I'm struggling with as well. I'm not on there, but I'm still on there.
Yeah. And this is where I always like to pull in the sort of, I think it's just like an activist proverb. I don't know who originally said this, but to be the sort of call to be hard on the systems, soft on the people. So as you just heard, I'm very happy to like be hard on Mark Zuckerberg, be hard on Jeff Bezos, be hard on Amazon and Meta, and like call them out as grotesque companies. But I would never say those things about individual users of these platforms. Right. Like we all live in a system that we are not profiting off of, most of us, and we're just trying to make our way through it. So, I have worked with people on deactivating profiles and deleting profiles, and I've worked with plenty of people on building 6 and 9 grids. And I think that every path has its merit, and there are different reasons. So there are different reasons to take the different paths. So for me, my old Instagram profile is still there. You can go to Instagram.com/Amelia Jo Hruby, I think, and see it. And it exists. And I left it up as an archive of my work, because my work was pretty much only on Instagram during that time when I was doing it. I think for me, it also is a little bit of like, it is still a little bit of social proof, so that when people are like listening to Off the Grid and they're like, was Amelia really on Instagram? They can go see like, yes, I really was. So that was my choice, but I don't log into the account. I haven't logged in. It's not set up in any meaningful way. And I will say that now that I haven't used it for 4.5 years, it's really dropped off my SEO for the most part. Like my website and other things show up way above my Instagram profile.
Okay.
So I think that you can shift that if you're worried about the Google search of it all. But I also have clients and friends who have deactivated their profiles because they want the option of going back eventually, or they know that maybe they might have a big opportunity one day, and they might be told by a gatekeeper that they need to be on social media. So they're, leaving that door open in a small way. And then I have people who come to Off the Grid and talk about how they've had to delete social media entirely. And often that comes from the sort of frame of experiencing social media addiction and feeling like a full deletion, abstinence approach was the only way forward for them. So I think it really, in many ways, it goes back to like what we had just talked about with like the reasons for leaving. It's like, if there are, personal, practical, and political reasons for leaving, that might determine what path you take forward. You might take a more personal path where you just decide to delete it, or you might take a more practical path where you leave up an archive, or you might take, maybe there's a more political path where you, I could see you like leaving a profile up that says something specific or deleting it entirely for political reasons. So I think there are so many options. And this is another really important part of my work to me is like, when we leave social media, I want the options to feel expansive. There is no one way, because in nature, there is no one way for anything, right? Like there's always this multiplicity and diversity and biodiversity. And I think that's true for the decision making and the agency we have in these decisions we make around social media too.
Thank you. And yes, there are so many decisions. I wanted to share one thing with you, which I don't think I shared this on the podcast before, but so if you do want to delete or deactivate whatever you want to do to your account, you can download, which you mentioned in your book, you can download all your data, and Meta will pull it all together and send you a bunch of folders with all of your images and your captions and all of the information that they have gathered about you, which is frightening to see. But yeah. When I did this, I still actually have, like, it makes me feel disgusting. When I did this, I got my folders because I deleted my whole account, all of my images, everything. I just wanted those 6 grid thing up. Amelia, the stuff that was in these folders that they sent me, there was one folder of all of my stuff. And then there was another folder of some of the most disturbing images I've ever seen in my life, like incel stuff. There was porn. There was some of the sickest, darkest things from the internet. And I immediately, I was like, oh my God. And because these were not my images, I would never have these type of images. And I immediately deleted because I'm like, if there's child porn, like, I don't know what's in these and I do not want them on my computer. And that was another moment where I'm like, oh my God, like, I think they have so much data that I'm sure someone else's data got mixed in with mine. Or I know that one person told me that someone can use your account to send DMs without you knowing. But that was also this wake up call of just how dark those spaces can be and all of the things that are going on there that we don't see. And I just don't want to be a part of that either.
Wow. Yeah. I downloaded my archive when I left, but I didn't comb through the folders. So now I'm like, oh, I should go look. I don't even know what's really in there. I mean, I did look enough.
Disturbing.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely have, you do get all of your images. You also get like records of all of the messages and DMs you sent with people and the ones that were sent to you that you didn't reply to. So I think there could definitely be things lurking in there. It's a lot of information. And in my experience, it like wasn't organized in the most intuitive way. So I just didn't look at much of it. But
no, it just looks like a bunch of type just shoved on a piece of it's not like tidy and like cute little bubbles of the DMs. It's just like one big log that you get. So it's not like most people are not going to even sift through that anyway. It's not a fun document to look through.
Yeah.
Anyway, beware when you download your images that there could be some disturbing things in there.
Yeah. And I mean, this is also true of the internet at large, though, right? Like, I often have to remind myself that my experience online is just one person's experience on the internet or one small community's experience on the internet, which is full of billions of people using it daily.
100%. When I think about it, I basically go to 4 websites, I think, ever. You know what I mean? Like and then sometimes I'm like, wait, there's millions of places you could be going, but it just makes me feel safer and better to just go to the 4 websites that I basically go to. Because like you said, the internet can be a very dark place. And I think that, with AI and everything that's happening now, I think it's going to be a space that people want to avoid. I don't think the internet is going to be as fun anymore.
Yeah, I think that we're all going to be invited to get more creative and to step back into our agency online. And we will, in my mind, like have to become more active users of the internet again, because I think that the sort of passive internet experience is just going to be a stream of AI slop served up by algorithms. And for those of us who are not satisfied by that, we will have to seek out other spaces and get creative. But I'm not giving up on the internet. In fact, right now I'm working on a workshop called How to Feel Better on the Internet. And
Great.
it's about how to redesign our lives online in this new era of what the internet looks like. And I talk a lot about different change strategies and embodiment practices and ways to bring our body onto the internet safely and with care, and just things that I wasn't thinking about 10 years ago when I hopped on Instagram and started sharing selfies.
Well, okay, that was the last thing I wanted to bring up, and then we'll shift to your inside/outside thing. That I think that so many of us feel like, oh, I can't believe I'm on at this moment. It still feels new in some ways. And I don't know if it's because it's constantly changing, but this has been in our lives for over a decade now. And if you think about any sort of type of addiction or anything that you feel like you're having problems kind of cutting off or adjusting, imagine doing that thing for 10 years and then saying like, oh no, stop tomorrow. Like, this has been in our lives for so long and it doesn't even feel like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it has to do with how much it has changed and is changing, and also with the sort of ephemeral nature of something that's entirely digital. So I very much believe that the internet and that social media impacts our offline lives in the physical world. But also, it's very easy to just like pick up your phone and scroll for hours and then put it down and be like, oh, I did nothing and I went nowhere, right? So it's both like ephemeral and always changing. And I think that does make it hard to understand the longevity and long lasting impacts that it's having in our lives. And I think for me, you know, I left social media right before I turned 30. And that was actually helpful for me because it felt very clear that I had given my 20s to social media and I was not willing to give my 30s to it. So that decade threshold was actually really supportive framing for me. But the other thing I always bring up here and that I help people with, and that there are episodes of my podcast on if folks want more support here, is like often when we step away from a platform like this, when we step away from a social media account or community that we've been a part of for a decade, we actually have to go through a grieving process. And I think that many people come to me and realize they've underestimated how much they invested there, how much joy used to be there. And when they go to leave social media, they're kind of flooded with that sense of like disappointment and sadness of what it used to be and losing all of that, even though they also know it's not that anymore. So that's why I talk about it as breaking up with social media a lot, because it was a really big breakup in my life, similar to some major relationships that I had gone through and breakups there. So I think that
I love that
it's very
parallel.
emotional.
It's like thinking about it as an ex that's just no longer working for you anymore. It's kind of, you really probably think about all those good times you had. And the breakup is hard because you're like, we used to be in love. Now it's not healthy anymore.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you're a business owner, maybe you're like, oh, this person makes more money than me, and maybe I should stay for the financial reasons. But I don't know anybody who really felt satisfied with staying somewhere just for the past that's gone or the money that seems present. So I always like to say to people, like, if you feel that pull inside of you that you don't want to be on social media so much or at all, like the greatest gift you can give to yourself is to listen to it and to stop silencing that voice and to spend some time with it. And, you know, maybe spend some time listening to my podcast and giving yourself permission to do what you want to do, to actually step away. Because when you do listen to an inner voice and when you do let it lead, you build self-trust. And when you trust yourself, you can do so much more than you ever imagined. And
Oh my gosh,
that's power.
Yeah. Choosing not to be on social media for my new company, I have felt so much more creative, and it almost feels like the coolest gift that I gave to myself, because it's pushed me to think of ideas, because I know that if I were on it, all I would be doing is trying to post things to get a reaction, but the return on investment would be zero. That time is better spent making a postcard or actually calling someone or going to an event. And you actually conclude your book with 100 ways to share your work and life off social media. So you give people lots of ways that they can do it, which I thought was really helpful. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that was actually the first thing I ever made around this. Before Off the Grid existed, before the book existed, when I left social media, I wrote that list of 100 things, and it changed my life. So I wanted to put it in the book and support people with it as well. And if folks want to see it, you don't actually have to buy the book. You can just go to my website at ameliahruby.com and find it there.
So now we're moving last for your inside thing. Every single podcast guest chooses a TV, book, or movie they're obsessed with, internet gossip they must discuss, a trend that they love or want to go away, or wild card. What are you bringing to us, Amelia?
I have selected a wild card that is also sort of a book.
Tell us.
So I actually emailed you to be like, can my inside thing be outside? And
absolutely. I was very excited about
it. So earlier this year, my dad and I built a free little library and installed it in front of my house. This is actually what we did together for my birthday. And we built it to look just like my house. So it's like a little miniature version of my home in front of my home. And I filled it with books, and it has become the greatest sight of joy for me. I have met so many neighbors. I have put so many books out there. I have received books there that I have then taken inside and read and then returned to the free little library. I also have given away plants. I've put up a little sign that says free plants and surrounded it with plants, and people have taken plants that I have now seen on porches around my block, which is exciting. And I've also had people from my online communities send me their self-published books and zines to go in the library. And so I've been able to share work from people I know on the internet, with my actual IRL neighbors, which is so fun. And I love it. It is truly the highlight of my year, this little library in front of my house.
Gosh. And I think to make a parallel back to social media, I think sometimes we want to check social media for validation or changes or what's different, but you can go out to your little library box and see what's new and what's different and how you're connecting with people. It's such a good tool to do that with. Wow. I see those little libraries all over Charleston, and I always get so envious that people have them. But I always think that you have to know to build them yourselves like you did. But I'm sure you can just buy them online somewhere.
Yeah. The Little Free Library website has kits that you can buy.
There's a website called Little Free
Library. Yeah. It's a whole nonprofit organization. You can put your library on the map. They have a map of all of the quote unquote official ones. But all you do to become official is you spend, I think it was $25 or $50 to buy a little plaque that is your charter for the library. So, yeah, I think I can never remember if it's Free Little Library or Little Free Library, the official version.
I'll include it in the show notes. I'll find it.
Yeah.
Okay. I've always wanted one. And I think what's so cool about it, you mentioned, putting plants, you could put seeds in it. You could put, there's a one around my city that has canned goods for people. I don't know. It's so special. And I loved that you shared that. And yes, it's technically outside, but you bring the things from the free little library inside. So it totally counts.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And my books from inside go outside into the library after I read them. So it has a, inside outside synergy, as we can say.
Gosh. Well, I'm so excited that I got a chance to talk to you. Tell everyone the name of your book again, in case they forgot it, your podcast, where they can find you.
Yeah, thank you so much for this conversation, Jessica. It's been a really joyful start to my day. My book is called Your Attention is Sacred, Except on Social Media. And you can find all of the details about how to purchase it at yourattentionissacred.com. And my podcast is called Off the Grid, Leaving Social Media. You can listen to it anywhere you get your podcasts. And it's geared toward creative business owners, but there are plenty of episodes for any user of social media who wants to sort of rethink their relationship to the apps. So I hope that you'll check those places out. You can also find me at ameliahruby.com if you want a sort of one-stop shop for everything that I am up to online.
Thank you so much. That's the show. Thanks for listening. If you like this episode or any of the episodes, leave a review. You don't even have to write anything. Just leave a 5-star review on Spotify. Here's how you do it. Find that little gear icon next to the show. Hit it. There's a little drop down. Rate this show 5 stars. Go back to your day. And if you want to know more about Basker or working with me to do horticultural therapy, head to baskergardens.com. Lots of it. Lots and lots about it in the show notes. I'll talk to you next week.